Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. The title has arose, Who Knew You Had to Move You? And so I am looking at Shakespeare's famous words, to be or not to be, and I am thinking to move or not to be. To move or not to move. Really, that is what life is. It is a sort of binary system of effort in the void. Pretty much all my life, even though I have lived in various moments with various identifications with events, experiences, senses of self, senses of world, and even the dynamism, speed, and velocity of the moment. But there is something that what I would like to say is that in this life, we start off moving. We start off moving with the trust of our environment. As we live the environment, that trust changes and reason sets in. I remember seeing this comic where it was hilarious. You know how Spider-Man says, my spider senses are tingling? It was this random other like comic. I don't know which character it was. I don't know the name, but the comic character said, my common sense is tingling. As we are moving in the world and there's a dependence on the world, the child doesn't have psychology. What that means is the child's mind is like a mirror of the world. There is no meaning yet, no containment of the meaning to even register as a conscious human being. Now, this doesn't mean attention. Attention is way more, I consider, ancient than form. That means the reason we can even entertain a subjective reality is because there has been an attention to the objective reality. That means, are we what we know, or are we looking at the known? Or is the known what we can only see from the picture? As the child is spoken to, named, and spoon-fed by the various environments and experiences the child walks through, the child eventually reaches a point of enough reference, enough experiences to contain the self. Pretty much in this life, you accumulate movement, potential movement, and that expresses. There's times I notice it when I give it when I give these talks. When it comes to a word I haven't said, I know, like I haven't, commonly used, I notice it goes right back to the memory. Right back to the memory where the concept was etched into the identity of the person, the identification of the person. On some level, we can treat the mind as non-local and it will be a giant mystery. Or we can treat the mind as local and it would be a giant nothing, which is also as mysterious. That means solipsism and nihilism, there's something strange about it, that the free will is choosing an ultimate extreme. Now, what happens? As the first initial snowball gets made, the snowball effect builds, and it's layer upon layer upon layer. Ever since the earliest memory I can remember, what it is the sequence of identity. That means literally our days have been creatures waking up, and we go through various events, and these events are classified in accordance to how we feel and what we see. We don't realize it, but sight is translating as emotion. That means a person, for example, like a young kid that gets scared or overwhelmed, cries, you know? And you can say if there was an alien invasion upon this planet, there could be a sort of I mean, I shouldn't give it words, but I can say there is fear. There is endless fear on this planet. And once you fear one thing, it starts. It starts from there. It's like one performance of dishonor in front of your own eyes. Imagine you were on an island and you made a mistake, you know? It's as if the memory doesn't know if it should process the pain that comes from self. There is a pain that comes without expectation, and there's a pain that the person does something and it suddenly comes through a familiar pattern. I mean, it's still unexpected, but there's familiarity. There's things that happen that we can identify and things that are happening that we can't. They say by the age 11 to 14, something around there, the child becomes a self to itself. That means before that, the child is just the rhythms of the environment, you know? But the child becomes self-conscious the moment it can identify, in some sense, comrades on the same battlefield or peers. First, you notice yourself in the mirror, then, upon noticing yourself in the mirror, you notice everybody else who's behind you in the mirror. What I mean by that is the world. That means in a big enough mirror, the universe can be reflected technically. We can't create a mirror like that, but if the mirror was that huge, there's a story related to ascribed to Edison, that when Edison's mother was during childbirth, was giving birth, Edison was like this young kid, and there were only candlelight. It was at night, and there was candlelight, and Edison goes and finds all the mirrors in the house and puts it behind the candle. So it appears as if there's more room, more light in the room. And I thought of that, in some sense, a reflective technology. But anyways, the individual consciousness, it goes through a sort of subjective selfhood. And once the subjective selfhood is established and it's mobile as a subject and it's mobile as an object, then emotions run free. You see, the child cries, all children, when they're born, they cry, imagine. Or they may be silent, I don't know, but like children cry. And so it's as if they're not conscious of the emotion. Like none of us have memories of how much we cried when we were newborn infants. That memory is, it could be there, but it's not accessible by everyone. And it doesn't have an emotion. That means I found something interesting, that there was a sense of righteousness I felt when I was young. And as one goes through life, it's as if every experience is a performance of self and world simultaneously. So what it is we're opening our eyes and we're identifying as self moving the world or world moving the self. Now, my whole point is with the title of Who Knew You Had to Move You, is that the child is not under the impression it has to move itself. It moves itself, but it doesn't have the conscious identity. That means I was moving as a kid. I was playing around, climbing trees, doing a lot of things, you know? But there was no conscious self. That's why there was no caution for consequence yet. Do you know? I remember it was this guy named Fusi Tube or something, where the person conducted the social experiment, and the person was going with a there was, long story short, it was a social experiment showing how many people care if a random person comes and says a child is like their child. It was a YouTube video social experiment. And this guy conducts the social experiment getting so shocked how many people are irresponsible when it comes to the important. You know, there are some leaders who they are only there when the victories are. And there are some leaders who everybody hides behind when the true challenge comes. Those are the advanced communicators. And you know, the thing about life is, right now, when I look at it, many ideological systems nullify the individual. It's as if the individual suffers and we're like, how do we stop the suffering? And there's two ways. Either the world has to stop existing or the self that's suffering has to stop existing. Mysticism found a way to get rid of the inner self, and not to get rid of it, but to notice the nature of the world. And as the world changed in your eyes, so did yourself. So you might not believe it, but self-realization means you're looking at the world and realizing the world is looking at itself. I have no idea what man is doing here. As everything in this universal sector makes sense except man, you know, because man is the generator of the meaning and the value of the senses. And in life, you would feel, I feel, there's illusions of individual freedom. It's hard being an individual in a world where every system is changing in accordance to its own design. There's been moments where I've experienced an intense, when I speak about the inner realms, I say it's like a river of thoughts, river of images for me. Now, this river of images has gone at speeds at times where I couldn't hold on to the image. So imagine a film being fast forwarded so quick, and what ends up happening is when you're zoomed in, when you're concentrating on the movement of the inner realms, and you go with the inner realms, with the rhythm of the inner realms, eventually that rhythm goes from being this known, how would I say it? It's like we're experiencing the character, imagine in a setting. That will be when we will notice this all the time that we were a character, we were also the setting, you know? You know, we look at phones, we look at many devices, they have settings, and we can change the settings. But the human being doesn't have settings as simple as that. You just go to the menu, you know, all right, let me go to the menu of my unconscious mind and change the settings of my conscious existence. It is not like that. The way man can move beyond the conscious mind is, first, if he accepts it, then he reaches the edge, then he accepts beyond the edge of conception. I'm talking about philosophy. The psychology is a design. Everything is designed. I don't know how we can know something that has no design. We can be the knower, but we cannot know it. Because in order to know something, anything in a dualistic dimension, especially with a dualistic language, you gotta have to compare. That means anybody who wants to, for example, comment on me, the speaker, you have to compare me to another image to be able to get a value, whether what is being said is good or bad. Do you see? So the world is it's like in instantaneity. There is no meaning. The moment is, and hence the meaning. But then there are moments where in duality the meaning can go multiple ways. I look at myself and I wonder about my future, and I notice that I can see it be chaotic, and I can see it be ordered. And I realize that if the mind has an ability to see the self as inefficient, then the mind simultaneously has the ability to see it as efficient. It's as if you move the brush stroke left, you can move it right. Now, a lot of people know that you got to move yourself in the outer realms. It's as if nobody goes to a enlightened guru and it's like, guru, I don't want to move my physical body. Can you move my body for me? You see, no, it's like when it's real, when we are being in the experience, we have the control of the physical body, right? So we don't go to other people to teach us how to walk. And when it comes to the mind, it is very similar, that you really can't go to anyone. It's just that you have to look at your moment as your moment. And there is no linear meaning. That means if somebody said, all right, man, study nonlinearity, how can you? Everything we study is linear. It's like building blocks leading to bigger constructions. So man's knowledge is a Tetris game, a giant Tetris game where every generation is like, I see things that way, I see things this way, da 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 da. And these Tetris pieces are falling down and building civilization. And a lot of human beings are being passive, too passive. It's kind of scary. It's as if people don't realize they're on a rock in the middle of nowhere, and the only thing we can do, worth physically doing, is building an advanced civilization. I'm not joking when I say that. Some people are like, all right, this guy's passionate, we get it. But I'll tell you, it's not just passion. I have concluded that to be the ultimate game. Because the notion of enlightenment is very crucial to language shaking up so that behavior changes on this planet. The internal experience of language. But the point of enlightenment is that it wasn't for a person. This is what they don't tell you. This is why the person would say neti, neti, neti. Because when they would say not this, because the person would ask, there is a separate selfhood. There's a self that people can see, which is, I consider that your outer realms, what's in front of your eyes. And then there's a self only you can see. Others can act maybe like they can see it, but they only see themselves. This world is made in the model of us being in it, but not of it. So what we think is the three-dimensional space-time, or let's say fourth-dimensional space-time continuum, you know, it's not a painting on a wall that all the generations will look at it and it's going to be the same. There was a time where in my own work, in the own questions I go after sometimes, I was wondering about what if there is seasons to dimensional framework. What if, imagine, as there's different seasons and the environment and the climate is different, even though we treat outer space as a vacuum, but I thought, what if it was a climate? What if it had a climate but we could not see that climate. That means imagine it was raining in another dimension, but you couldn't see it, you know? And somebody, imagine, comes up to you and says, hey man, get an umbrella, and you don't see it, you know? So the notion is that a certain percent, 50% of life, yes, go, see what the back of whatever teacher you like looks like. But I'll tell you, your moment of being is the elder of any thought you have ever had. And when you understand this, a presence is found. Because our eyes look outwards, we think life is about others only. We think it's about what's outside of us, and we define everything based on that. But your inner realms is uncharted territory if you have never cared for it. That means there was a moment where I think every human being should do this. You should just for a second, like who was it? It was in that golf movie where the golfer suddenly visualizes everybody is not there. There's no other golfer. It's just him there alone with the field. It's like that too. But now it's becoming with the field of a collective being. That for how long are we going to run away in our selfish caves from the inevitable occurrence of an advanced civilization? It will happen. I'm just saying it earlier. Do you know that means everything I'm saying, once my mind fathomed, okay, I had seen this video of this YouTuber say that the YouTuber had gotten many comments that were negative, you know? And I wondered what would that mean? To move or to be moved? That is the question. And if we are to move, worlds follow. You know, your memories are just a trail of how energy got transformed. That means that's the only thing energy has been doing. You can say all of life is transformation. Everything's transforming. The whole point of even discussion is for transformation. So you see, everything in nature has been moving. It's just after 4 billion years, now we can consciously move it. But the civilization, there, everybody is scattered. Every mind is scattered to some degree. And at most people are caring for their children. They're not caring for their great grandchildren, as if they care for their children but they don't care for their grandkids. I'm telling you, there's so many people like that, where they embrace their familiar but they banish the unfamiliar. Little do we know, the unfamiliar never ends, and that is moksha, where you went looking for a known treasure and you found the unknown treasure looking out. You thought the treasure was something to hold. The treasure was the one looking, the only thing that requires to be treasured. Because here's the thing. Anybody, I don't know if it's the geometrical sight I have or this is the case, but I'll tell you, I can totally see that if we start as an individual, if we focus life on what it means to be a self. Sorry guys, I just noticed there's literally the word text in the middle of the wallpaper. And I must honor my future self and fix this, so hang in there for a second. All right, guys. Sorry about the pause. I don't know why the wallpaper is not changing. But anyways, I'll continue with the talk. So who knew you had to move you? Who knew that we had to move our species? And that's the value, because all of life's activities is engaged with some sort of motion, isn't it? That means when I said everything is like binary at the beginning in regards to effort and no effort, it's as if before language moved in our minds, the world moved in our minds. The world was the first tenant. Then the objective self was the second tenant. The third tenant was language, the subjective self, and the fourth tenant perhaps will become the subjective world, which is cyberspace. Makes perfect sense. Cyberspace is the completion of our evolution. It will happen. It will be the moment where human beings became gods of their inner realms experientially. Right now, the inner realm, you are a void witnessing it. But when cyberspace comes, the inner realm is going to become, in some sense, the outer realm is going to cause the inner realm to feel like it is God. Do you know that means think of it as if you have, just like how they said there's a third eye. Imagine there is a third hand. But this hand is not physical, it's the reach of your mind, of your vision. For me, there is a spirituality which is like wearing clothing. It's nice to identify with something that never dies. But then there is the actual mystery of the unknown, whether the person likes it or not, anytime the person goes into the unknown of the inner realm consciously or through some, I don't know, weird ceremonial way, those are all, let me say it like this. When your inner realms are like a butterfly. Your mind is like a butterfly. If you chase it, you are a step behind it. But if you actually sit still and don't chase it and watch life, literally act like a plant, you know, you don't know how many times in life I've honestly, when I look back at it, I think I learned my, communication skills from plants when I was younger, because it was just mere existing. As if you don't know, when I was younger, I had this sort of karmic quarantine of my inner realms being denied from the outer realms. It was as if I feel like in my youth, life wanted me to just watch, like not to speak much. Then it came to a point where, I don't know, suddenly in one of the most intense moments of my life, I decided to do the most intense thing I could imagine. So that means it's like there is something that I would call this is true street smarts, where the person realizes where the value can no longer go lower. Some people, they see failure and they're like, oh man, that person failed. I feel sorry for that person. Then imagine one person fails and that person is happy. And people are like, you failed. How are you happy? And the person's like, now I have added to my database of various ways of experience movement. That means even if, like, here's the thing. This is where you have to sometimes in life, roll out your own carpet and then walk away. We were a known object, then we were an unknown subject. Now the subject is becoming known, and the whole world is becoming unknown. And it's an opportunity. Think of it this way: that maybe in like 120 years, uh, walking around and moving and being an actual human being is going to become like completely changed. Maybe right now, how, for example, computers are making human beings be more of an indoor creature. Do you see? It's as if a cyberspace is going to become the shell of the turtle. When the turtle goes into this shell, it's going to feel like it's in heaven, but its heaven is not real heaven. You know, that means a person may hide from life, but you'll see it just goes forth. There's moments where I have made mistakes. Everybody has. But I've made mistakes that I knew how to avoid and I didn't. Or there was uh, some sort of turbulence that caused me to move away from my sincerity resonance, if I could say that. You see, everybody is using up energy to be expression, right? Even whoever's listening right now, technically, like, I don't know, probably it takes less energy than speaking, but like listening is very, it takes energy to even be alive. So, you know what the thing is? We are so ideologically oriented that we don't even notice consciously energy is leaving our bodies. I think the issue with the food of especially in Western culture, is in regards to fast food and the diet, is that there is a lack of body consciousness. And those who are body conscious, they're doing for desires of how they arise as a subject. You see, if it's like we're not a species of Tai Chi masters yet, you know? When we become a species of Tai Chi it's like a species, all the aliens come, we're all in the park slowly moving our hands. The aliens are like, what is this? What is the species? I mean, honestly, if an alien came to make contact with human beings, I would definitely get a Tai Chi master as a translator. I would be like, all right, Tai Chi master, energetically translate what this energy, what this entity's like intent is, you know? Can you imagine? That's what we've never seen. A Shaolin monk, somebody who has, a Shaolin monk temple, and aliens are invading Earth, and Shaolin monks are fighting aliens. Like that would be a movie that would sell everywhere. You know, whoever chooses to go forth with this idea, definitely let me know. But the whole point is that there's a certain percentage of life you can control. Like, I can control speech, I can control generating sound, you know? I can control my attention, I can control my concentration, I can control the creative force, the destructive force, and even the force of maintenance. You see, there's some people who are good at creating things. There are some people who are good at destroying things. And there are some people who are good at carrying on civilization. You know? And everybody, of course, has access to these three dimensions, but it's just like where you as a being want to do your work. So technically, from a materialistic perspective, atoms have dreams somehow right now. Dreams of getting better and going to the future. So when you take a materialistic perspective, it nullifies the ideological value that is not just from a rational source. Sometimes, like if you think about it, I totally understand. Yes, the scientific mind commands from the religious mind evidence orienting to the laws of nature. But when you go buy a refrigerator, or when you go buy a shirt, or when you go buy ice cream, is it a massive calculation that is according exactly to something, or is it just preference? What if there was this view, if we really took the materialistic perspective real, then we'd be like, all right, it's completely temporary, so everybody do whatever you like. Everybody's going to go destroy the house in the house party. So materialism is actually a permission to break the world. Because what is there? What consequence is there? It's as if we from the materialistic perspective, you are causing a life, but then if there is no effect, it ends. It's like, what effect? Yet we, in the law of thermodynamics, say energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it changes from one form to another. Honestly, the first law of thermodynamics is pretty much reincarnation. The idea of reincarnation, just with a suit and a tie. So much of life is just imagery in the void. I mean, you can't do much about it. There are some people who they want something. You can say they want the good, but they don't want to see the bad. Yet, without seeing the bad, how do you know what good is? Which is the strange reason I think chaos and order are like a yin-yang symbol. Guys, in tonight's episode, I'm going to actually dive into the Tao Te Ching, which was written by a person who technically the idea of a long white beard relating to wisdom comes from this guy. Oh man. Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the Tao Te Ching is a book where the Tao is the truth, yet the Tao is nothing, and it's literally very paradoxical. Even though Taoism, you can say it is its own light, but it's like a candle, very similar to the candle of Zen. That means technically, if we're all being in like a dimension, I mean, like different cultures having different stories, it's just like technically we're all seeing the same thing. Okay, Tao Te Ching, let's go. 27 timeless Tao Te Ching quotes. Thanks. Google. Saint Google is blessing us, guys. All right, let's see. So, silent and boundless. So, guys, this is a quote tunnel of Tao Te Ching quotes. Silent and Lao Tzu was Confucius's mentor. Was Confucius's technically guru, or silent and boundless. Standing along without change, yet pervading all without fail. It may be regarded as the mother of the world. I do not know its name. I style it Tao. And in the absence of a better word, Call it the Great. Wow, I didn't know this. Yeah, it's the Great. That's the best word for it, the Great. You know, that means if imagine extraterrestrials came down and they're like, what kind of creatures are you? And we'd be like, we're great creatures. And the extraterrestrials would be like, what do you mean you're great creatures? And we were like, we're just great. You know? Who knew? You know, sometimes you don't need to have a reason to be a part of this world as you're already being. Um, Lao Tzu says, between heaven and earth, there seems to be a bellows. It is empty and yet it is inexhaustible. The more it works, the more comes out of it. No amount of words can fathom it. Better look for it within you. Yeah, it's within. Lao Tzu says, how do I know the way of all things at the beginning? By what is within me. You see, that's the thing. That's why I'm saying, guys, that when I say there's the outer realms is where your personality comes from. The watcher of the inner realms is where your presence comes from. If you can be content with the presence and discover yourself as a moment of attention, then you get hyper attention to everything, including your body, any content. Your reflexes become next level because you are not being a shape in the moment, you are being the moment. Very simple. Lao Tzu, in the Tao Te Ching, it says the mystery of mysteries is the door of all essence. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, indeed, the hidden and manifest give birth to each other. Wow, yeah. Yin yang problems, guys. Yin yang problems. You know, if you don't salute your being, it doesn't matter what you do. You have forgotten who is doing it. Lao Tzu says the world is a sacred vessel which must not be tampered with or grabbed after. To tamper with it is to spoil it, and to grasp it is to lose it. And that's why, guys, I am so thankful that there's moments in my life where I don't know what I'm doing. Because then I can hear the voice of the world, and new feathers can grow on the wings of the mind. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, heaviness is the root of lightness, serenity is the master of restlessness. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, to be great is to go on is to be far is to return. That means we are building an advanced civilization just to return to the future. You know, a sentence we don't hear, perhaps ever, that we are returning to the future, that everything would go on to timelessly be. That means if the future is beyond the dimension from time, then intuition is how the future is everywhere, has become everywhere. Because you can totally think of it. I mean, what is the individual doing? Assimilating with the collective. What is an individual species going to do? Assimilate with the potential of collective civilizations. You see, that means it's like we have a view where human beings can make extraterrestrial contact, but then human beings, imagine being the first human being to make contact. In my science fiction book, I'll share the story after, but I'll make the point. Imagine being the first human being to make contact with another human being in another parallel Earth, right? So in my sci-fi novel, The Messenger of Giants, there's a chapter which I'm going to share now just to add a bit of flavor to this talk. Uh, guys, the reason I share these stories is because Rumi has said it well. Before death takes away all that is given, give away all there is to give. Give away all there is to give. What more beautiful purpose can energy have? A civilization that gives more than it takes. The blueprints to the engines of a better future. This chapter of my science fiction novel is called Mephisto's Denial. And Mephisto is a very unique character. He is one of the richest people, and something I tell you about this world that's set in the year 5025. There's 9 parallel dimensions of Earth, and there is, yeah, if I remember correctly, it was 9. There were nine parallel dimensions of Earth, and they were all in contact, and Mephisto was the first person in this universe of how I have imagined humanity, where he was the first architect to build to build a building between 2 parallel realities of Earth, and nobody knows how he did it, and he hasn't told anyone. And he's become the most famous and richest architect in the world, in history books and endless awards, because he did the impossible. And so what did he do? He built a skyscraper. Guys, this was so cool when I was writing it, because I could see it very clearly in my inner nose. So what it was is that I saw this skyscraper that goes up to the clouds, but then when it goes up to the clouds, there's nothing. Okay? Then in another dimension, right above the clouds, in the other parallel Earth, the skyscraper goes up above the clouds. Do you see what I mean? It's like like a building between 2 dimensions. It's like we thought portals were cool. Now guess what? You can actually live between 2 parallel dimensions. You know. So Mephisto, that's what he's known for. That's his background story. Mephisto's denial is how, after reaching the highest point of humanhood and fame and greatness on Earth, he decided to follow and join this group. This what do you call it? This pretty much he joins this project where it's the spaceship beside this planet. He signed a contract, and the whole chapter is called Mephisto's Denial, is because Mephisto breaks his contract. Now, he signed this contract. I'm not going to tell you the details, but pretty much the idea of the contract is because he's an architect, he wants to go into this planet where there's a species, where there's an alien civilization, where this alien civilization, they have incredible telekinetic ability, but they also have an ability to make houses come alive. They're a very unique alien species that their buildings are alive, so their buildings protect them. You know, their building becomes a guardian angel. You know, that means imagine like there was domestic violence in the house, and suddenly, like the wall, like I don't know, like the house defended you. Like, how intense would that be if in the future Like if in people's houses they have a thief comes in the house, they press a button, an advanced robot is thrown out of the ceiling onto the ground and immediately identifies who's safe and who isn't, and grabs the thief and runs out the house. Imagine, you know, and holds the thief in the air in a way where he can't move until the authorities come. Imagine. But anyways, back to Mephisto. Mephisto is in the spaceship. He kind of like Matrix style. He plugs himself in, and his body is in some sort of liquid. And he incarnates as a child in this alien species family, as a child of the most royal family, where his paternal side, his grandfather was an ancestry of the greatest telekinetic movers, and in the maternal side, his parents are those who the greatest, who have the skill of giving. That means pretty much they make a contract in the book I wrote with the oversoul of the planet, you know. So in the book, there's species that reach such enlightened peaks, they go and speak to planets before even entering it, you know. Now the whole story is that the person Mephisto thinks he's working with the government, the enlightened society, that future government I see. Now, that government is getting infiltrated, and this is when Mephisto suddenly realizes that he shouldn't. He denies his contract. So he becomes this architect in this spaceship that's stealth right above the atmosphere of the planet, and he's become like this child of this alien species, who he has the best karma just for to do the work, you know. Anyways, the chapter is much better when you read it. But the idea was that it was one building drawn between two dimensions, it was one being between two lives. Guys, I've started a channel called Mr. Within's Library. Honestly, I've been so focused on the talks, I haven't invested in trying to share my written work, which I had a very couple years, you know, I think it was 2 years of a heavy writer's life before I ever began speaking and giving these talks. So that sci-fi chapter will be shared in the future. Anyways, pretty much you have choice. It took you 4 billion years to be able to be conscious of your suffering so you can make a choice about it. You know, suffering may not be new, but our choices upon that suffering is new, and it must be utilized. You know, that means a person should only cry if they have tried everything out. Everything, every attempt. They have gone 100% and their 100% hasn't been satisfied, and then for me, light, that seems to be where the world is coming from. The world, it's as if light beams of the sun are like UN translators between leaders of nations. You know, it's as if an unknown outer realm light hits it and enters our eyes. And there could be this heavy philosophical discussion on the notion that we never actually see the outer world. We see the outer world like a chemical that with light has been transformed. So we never see the outer world, we see outer world plus light. You see what I mean? Because that light is what gives us sight, but the stuff is not there. It's not that we are seeing stuff. It's just that there is light to see the stuff. You know what I mean? So that means it's like we actually are only seeing light. We are never seeing what's there. Even though there is a lot of stuff with design, but the full certainty of the roots of knowledge are is in an unknown soil. You know, we are like jukeboxes, but now we can choose what songs we play. You know, we can choose. The jukebox can choose for itself. One may ask, why Earth? Why here? Sometimes I look at all the other planets and I'm like, why? That means, you know what it is? Um, our design, actually, there's no reason why we should exist in the conditions that we're kept. So that means it's like we think as if it's not possible to have human life on Mars, but if a creature was designed for Mars, perhaps it could be in some sense prepared for the environment. For me, it's strange. For me, the cosmos, it's this. You can say this is Mr. Within's tribute to Fermi's paradox, because I feel I saw one chess move further in the picture. That we are like, all right, there's life on Earth. Where is everything? Where are all the aliens? Where is all the life? The universe has been here for so long. Really, we were the only ones that made it. And so that's Fermi's paradox in philosophy. Where are the aliens, pretty much. Now, there's different approaches, so many different models that I know at least I think three models that can answer that question, that can be put to that question. But just like the yin yang symbol, there is one small sphere in the black, and there is one black sphere in the white. There is a planet with all the other planets being empty. There's a universe there's a solar system. Imagine a Milky Way with one planet. Uh, or I'm just saying, like, just like the other, right now we're on one side of the coin where it's like Earth is filled with life and all the planets appear empty. And so I think, what if there was a parallel dimension where all the other planets were full, only Earth was empty? Earth was uninhabitable. Sometimes I feel intuition is honestly alien contact. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Communication that is unfamiliar. That's always alien to the person. It's just design, guys. Everything is geometry. I mean, look at your table. Look at everything. Everything is made of lines, and you can even you can say, how do I say it? You can even say everything you in the school of Athens, like those of the likes of Aristotle, they considered that there is no straight lines in nature, and they saw geometry, straight like geometrical shape, the Platonic solids, even Plato. They saw it as divine to a degree where in the school of Athens there were shapes, like there was a room with guards with perfect like the Platonic solids, and if the students like secretly tried to go in that room, like they had given the guards a command that if the person's eyes see the shape, they must be killed because it's divine knowledge, and the guards, their backs are always to the shape if they don't want to die. So it's one of those things where they feel whoever saw like a perfect Platonic solid back in the day, it would be like, it would blow their minds. It would be like 3D. Like imagine like a person who's never been to the cinema getting seeing a 3D movie. You know what I mean? It was like that level. But I would say that we can see straight lines, but they are on a microscopic level. So we can just consider the whole universe is made of straight lines. It's just what we think is curved is just very small straight lines that we don't see. We could totally think this is a perfectly, there is a geometrical mystery to the cosmos that whoever has found or has noticed anything from in their inner realms, they should report to the global community pretty much. What that means is it's like there is mysterious stuff. When we realize we can't see the edge of the sky, that's one mystery. And then when we suddenly get a dream or an experience or some movement before we move, the mind has a life. But if you don't care for your mind, you're just moving based on the biological program. And the biological program is now being more controlled by epigenetical factors. So what that means is like society is technically, it's strange. It's like you can't be in the film if you're not an actor. And every time we need to communicate as individuals, we need to be in the linguistic film, but the moment the person is just still and silent, it's as if they find the director's eyes. You see, it's honestly, there's film directors that treat it like a canvas, like as if, I feel that's the purest form of directing. Just like we have method acting, that would be method directing, you know? And it is true, every director has their own method, their own eyes, but I'm saying it would be as if, what is better in society? We all try to look like each other, or we all try to see what our superior next level is. That means world peace can only arise if there is an important enough collective quest. And hence why I say that advanced civilization is the most important idea. I would say before an advanced civilization, two ideas are very important to me above all the ideas that have come. One is the language threshold, and the other is the notion of an advanced civilization. It's as if there's nothing more beautiful. Because for me, there is no perfect house to live in if the world is imperfect. You see, we cannot control the sound of the world. The world is driving somewhere. We can choose to be in the passenger seat. Those are for those who want to walk non-dualistically here, and those who are not afraid of duality, those who have been to the inner heaven and back, Life is just waiting for your performance, for your existential performance or symphony conducted by how your attention is moved in this realm. You know, even though I say the word extraterrestrial, guys, keep in mind, technically, they're just extraterrestrials, you know? So, so it's like we're aliens to them, they're aliens to us. Are we really, is there really aliens? Do aliens really exist in that way? You know, it's just camaraderie on a galactic level. First, we gotta attain camaraderie on a global level, and right now we are in the wars of the cultural program and the social institutions. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not trying to say like, yo, let's rebel. I mean, rebellion is the last resort. Rebellion is like if it was close to an extinction event, rebellion, we could veto the vote towards rebellion. But I'm saying that it's not an extinction event. This life right now is just an up is like a fax machine. And you know, for certain younger audiences who are like fax machine, like that word is new to them. Let me tell you what this mysterious artifact from ancient times is. This is something that some people feel it outdates even Egypt. If I show you the picture of a fax machine. Guys, this may be too graphic for if I show this for the viewers. It could literally be like the Platonic solids in the School of Athens if I show you the legend of the fax machine. Okay. All right, guys, get ready. This is gonna be maybe it's gonna be intense for people to watch. This may feel like ancient Egypt, but try to endure it, guys. That's a fax machine. And beside it, the picture is blurry, but beside it, that other ancient artifact is a calculator. And some people, maybe calculators existed outside of phones. You know, it's like, yes, kids, they did. It's a fax machine, and it's the first prototype. That's it. Nobody has ever done anything wrong. Everybody is trying things. Technically, all of life is improv. There's just certain moments where you can plan and feel. You know, that means technically every moment of your life you're improvising. There's certain moments where you just become conscious of a certain way you want to be yourself, and that's when you feel like, oh, I'm not improvising. But reality is a movement ultimately. That means if you stop doing anything and you watch the world like a film, you will be surprised after some time how the inner realms would move. First, they would move a lot, then the ripples in the pond settle, then the reflection of the sky is clear, as Rumi says. Let the waters settle, and you shall see the moon and the stars mirrored in your being. You see, guys, the only reason is just painting the world in the conscious waking state. You know, the dream state is highly irrational, and if you somehow maintain consciousness in the dream state, it's as if you're in an irrational realm. In the dream state, the person can feel like a self moving in the world. In the dream state, you can instantly move the world too. I don't know how many people notice this. That's why the concept of lucid dreaming feels to me is very strange. Doesn't really it doesn't really feel proper. Why? Because the attention can even change the world. You have the free will to move the world where the dream is happening as well. So what does that mean? That means you're actually studying your free will in an irrational simulation as your body is in sleeping on in the bed. You choose the strength you carry yourself as. In the chat section, Robert says, "Do you have any thoughts on recurring dreams, Mr. Within?" Yeah, it's kind of like you. There was a significance about the dream that you missed, or like you can say it's as if your unconscious mind is showing you something. It's like it's as if you didn't understand the film when you saw it the first time. Now it's as if the unconscious mind is like, all right, round two. If you still didn't get it the second time, then it's like round three. Then after some point, the mind's gonna be like, buddy, you know. I don't know. To be honest, dream state is not very linear. That's why we can't really comment too much on it. It's more evocational. So why a dream happens, it could be maybe a way you're sleeping in the bed that causes the antenna signal to be like that. It could be it's a communication of an abstract form in the subtler planes. What that means is sometimes in dreams I have moved, but sometimes in dreams there has been movements of entities. That means I could tell you, even though we say it's a dream and we wake up, but in the dream I have perceived a sort of personality, as if an unconscious personality, an unconscious archetype got out and could manifest in the dream. I would say, to be honest, a recurring dream could be nature's way of trying to get you to remember something. There was a time in my life where I got in trouble, and in that moment I just looked at the sky. It was one of those moments where I was pure. It was like alone with myself and the cosmos, and it was, for a second, I was like, what am I not seeing from this moment? 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 A mantra. A perception, a mode of perception with intensity. You see, a person can hold and lift a very heavy weight, but they have to muster up the energy for it, you know? And so we can say that in the inner realms, if you want to move a weight, the advantages is because it's evocational and instant. If you consider it, it is there in design. That means for an attention oscillating between the known and the unknown, what can truth possibly be? Where change is the only voice in that room. The inner realms is literally like a higher dimension, a cell phone from a higher dimension, gifted to you in your brain somehow. I mean, intelligence, of course, sometimes I think it's like, what does the mind need to process? Like, why are the neurons moving? I think the archaic revival of the unknown is the edge of knowledge. That means we should enjoy right now how language is. Because most likely 30 years from now, language is going to change in ways where we might, what is very real now may be in, it may be just our shadow in the future, who knows? That means sometimes when I think about in the future, every human being connecting their head to the internet because we've become such digitally in digi ecosystems. If we find a way, the moment we find a technology that can make us feel like a god, is the moment where we will leave the body behind. The body is a teaching, and pain, suffering is your body, let's say, it's a teacher, and its teachings are like pain, suffering, whatever happens, however way the elements that have come to be you know, in whatever way they, it's like every atom of your being salutes you as you salute your being, and you realize that whatever was done. And so it's all about the known event returning to the unknown event. Fear not fear, for the shapeless can never die. Attention is like air. It's like our mind, like here's the thing, it's like there is attention, then there's the content in attention, then there's the inseparability of the attention and the content, then there's return to the unknown. That means all ideological systems lead to the unknown, and they begin from the unknown. The unknown is the gate to the paradise beyond language, which upon those clouds of experience, imagine human beings all just sitting and no longer moving, and the world is just happening before they need to move. It's as if it would become, being a physical being would be obsolete when through artificial augmented virtual reality, Sorry guys, I got interrupted. Okay. Pretty much after 4 billion years now, we can be conscious of ourselves and move ourselves. We've moved ourselves as objects, and we've created language as a subjective system to give meaning to the objective. So you can say a subject is a soul of an object. Now, in order for us to find a way to create a sort of language, or find a soul to all right, guys, to continue. We found meaning in objects through subjects. Now we are finding through stillness and silence meaning through the subjects. So we can say geometry is actually, wow, this is something I never thought of, but I think I can add now to this approach I have, that I've been speaking about this geometrical language this whole time, as geometry is going to be the next great language of all languages. But right now it occurred to me, what if there is a silent language as a phase? That means, let us think about the evolution of language, and what if language has to go back into the silence and re-emerge from the silence as a new thing? Kind of like caterpillar butterfly metamorphosis. There's this story, I'm going to share it. This story, there's a servant, or let me say it like this, there's an imperial swordsman who's teaching the king's soldiers how to fight with swords. The imperial swordsman. This imperial swordsman comes home. It's a Zen story. He comes and sees his wife is sleeping with the servant. And the wife has been so alone, the servant was the only one around, so inevitably it occurred. And so this imperial swordsman just sees them in the act, and just the first thing he does is he tells the person to leave, to step outside of the building. He doesn't get angry at anybody, he just says step outside, you know? Step outside. The servant is terrified, of course, and the wife is in shame, just silent, quiet in a corner. Feminism hadn't evolved then to that degree. It hasn't even evolved now to that degree, I would say, because it is I mean, of course the word feminism means something very different to different people. However, we're human beings, and the wife feels shame and she's quiet, and the servant walks outside, and the imperial swordsman goes outside. The imperial swordsman doesn't say a single word. He just throws. He has two katanas, these swords, and he throws one of the swords at the servant and just says one word: fight. The servant is shaking, and before he doesn't know what to do, and in that moment he remembers, like in situations where he doesn't know what to do, he has this guru, and he just shouts the guru's name and says he's a disciple of this guru, and he says, let me go speak to the guru and I'll be back. And back then there was a code of honor. The guy's not running away in the story. The guy goes to the guru and says, oh my god, I messed up, what do I do? And the guru's meditating beside a tree, this Zen sage. And the guy's thinking like the sage is going to say, all right, dedicate your life to enlightenment and sit by this tree forever, you know? And the guru doesn't say that. The guru stands up, the sage stands up and says, this is your destiny, as if he's received an intuitive something, his inner realms, an event is occurring in his inner, and he tells him that you have no choice, this is your destiny, and I'll give you one word of advice. Fight as if it's your last day in this existence. It's your last moment in this existing world, this life. In the same place, on the next day in the same place, the imperial swordsman is waiting, and the servant comes. and also a helicopter. The servant comes with a helicopter. I don't know if the audience can hear the helicopter from outside the window. Anyways, uh, the servant comes back to the place where the Imperial Swordsman was, and the Imperial Swordsman has already thrown the sword on the ground. And the guy just comes. It's as if imagine the Imperial Swordsman is standing. The guy just comes from the forest, grabs the sword, and as if he is so uh, shocked by how this could be his last moment in this life, he goes all out, kind of like Goku goes to an ultra instinct level. The Imperial Swordsman is surprised that such a swordsman was his servant, but he sees in that servant's eyes that he is so scared that he's going all out, as if he doesn't want to die, as if he doesn't want to discontinue as a being. And so he goes all out, and suddenly the sword falls from the Imperial Swordsman's hand as he gets distracted by how intensely the guy is fighting. And it becomes a situation where um, there's a silence, and suddenly the Imperial Swordsman nods as what's his name? As the servant also drops the sword and leaves. And in the story, 3 days later, the servant attains nirvana. Because he realized life is happening in a moment, not in one, not in two, not in zero, not in infinite. That's the beauty of the unknown. It is the watcher of energy. And so that's the brilliant part, where it's like a symphony of advanced vision arising on the planet, as if you suddenly hear one instrument being played, then another, and as many instruments are begin activating, it's as if then the symphonies begin activating, and after symphonies begin activating, the greatest, you can say, sort of the avatars of advancement arise. For me, I feel that in the future, perhaps geometrical shapes will become banners of formless kingdoms. There is a poet named, not just a poet, also a mathematician named Omar Khayyam. And he says, be happy for this moment. This moment is your life. You know, many people, I remember reading, like here, I'll Google it right now. I'm just going to Google, check this out. Check this out, guys. This was updated January 2020 from the World Health Organization. Key facts. Depression is a common mental disorder. Globally, more than 264 million people of all ages suffer from depression. More than 264 million people suffering from depression. Maybe that's just nature. Maybe that's the weather. You know? I think what is being interpreted as depression is the lack of attention to how there is so much more than just little old me. Before the word depression existed, our ancestors ran in battlefields with swords. So, were they depressed? Can we say all the population, the more further back we go in history, depression was just the jungle? Now, because we have the option of being in a better state, we can choose not to be. You see, you're always in the jungle. It's just that your mind gives you the capacity to step out of it. Anyways, guys, I'm going to read one poem and then I'm going to end off tonight's session. Hafez says, the poem is Someone Should Start Laughing. I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, how are you? I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, what is God? If you think that the truth can be known from words, if you think that the sun and the ocean can pass through that tiny opening called the mouth, oh, someone should start laughing. Someone should start wildly laughing now. The reason I shared this is this poem is literally the language threshold, where our experience surpasses the language we have to translate it into some linear story of a clay level of malleability. We must not fear the multidimensional, because that is where excitement always takes us. Excitement, adventure, exploration, wonder, these divine, these rare, sacred, you can say old soul emotions that are ours. Beyond language, the flight is different because you don't need wings to fly. You have become the sky of the ever-present universal mind. And any more words beyond this, it would be as if how many fingers need to point at the sun until man realizes the light in his eyes. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll see you in the Discord server if there's any questions. And the link of the Discord is found in all the talks pretty much. Anyways, thanks for listening. Blessings.